Hello, this is Dr. Lee Cheek, and this is our lecture on religion and politics. Very few issues in the study of American government are as interesting, as exciting, as important, or potentially as bewildering as the relationship between American religion and American politics. We live in a time where there is a great deal of interaction, a great deal of controversy, and a great deal of appeals to the religious influence of American politics. And so we're going to survey that in what I hope is both an informative, enlivening, as well as a humorous manner. Religion and politics are two of those issues that are by their nature some of the most controversial and some of the most excitable topics known to humankind. And this is certainly true in America as well. So I've added a few humor elements to this lecture that I hope that you will appreciate and are a hallmark of my personality and my teaching and really my worldview. As a student of American politics and as a professor for over 30 years, the relationship, the interconnection between religion and politics has been an area that is of great interest to me, and I know will continue to be until I pass beyond this proverbial veil of tears. I should also note, as I have in the introductory lectures, that I'm a 30-year veteran of the Methodist ministry, having graduated from Duke Divinity School, spending a lot of time as a parish minister and as a U.S. Army chaplain. So I've felt these issues that we'll be talking about as matters of the heart, but also as matters of the mind. And I think that's the unique predicament of most Americans. So in the slides, there are a number of somewhat humorous reflections and actual images. One of those is of a cross street between church and state, which is one of those kinds of dividing points that where should they interact and how should they interact. And in the vernacular of American politics and American religion, should there be a separation of church and state? I have a couple of funny slides that you can look at from actual church signs that deal with these kinds of issues at great length and somewhat humorous, in a somewhat humorous vein. Very often, individuals of faith tend to bring that view of faith into the public sphere when they talk about politics. And I have an example of that as well, that is an image that is not meant to offend, but to kind of show really one of those kinds of views of the hundreds, perhaps thousands. There is a legitimate question that should be raised, however, and that is what is the best form of government, which is a perennial question we ask in American politics and American life. From a religious perspective, that question is often asked as well, but sometimes without a great deal of clarity. One of the reasons is that in religion, there are many possibilities for the forming of the state. If, just to offer a few examples, if one turns to the Hebrew Bible, what Christians refer to as the Old Testament, as well, one can turn to the Quran and many other ancient religious documents. There are many models of what is the best state. What I like to refer to in terms of the Hebrew Bible is the ecclesiocratic model, which means there's essentially a king that God has put in power. God has given the authority to run the state, and therefore that king's power is permanent, all-consuming, and is not to be questioned. Now, when we turn, for example, to the New Testament, Jesus does not talk about a perfect state, a perfect type of state. Many other religious varieties in America do not talk about a perfect kind of state. So religion leaves open the possibility of what the best type of state are. So on one hand, there are many options. On the other hand, the number of controversies that come from the interaction of religion and politics are multitudinous and continue. For example, and to give you some experiences from just the last few years, it was a subject of some controversy when Catholic priests met in New York City for a major conference on poverty and how to solve poverty, what to tell the government to do to solve poverty. That concerned people who were religious, people who were not religious, people in politics. A number of years ago, when President Bush, the second, Bush 43, as we often say, was in office, the United Methodist Church, my own church in which I've been a minister for many years, and some sort of commission gave him the title of Person of the Year. And that struck many people as an awkward thing for a church to do, to ennoble a sitting president. And it also bothered some people in that who may not like the Methodist Church, that they were celebrating a particular president. So you see the kinds of controversies that rise. Many of the issues in American politics, school prayer, military engagement, abortion, are areas where religion and politics come together. Religion shapes, for many Americans, their view of policy issues. So it is a very serious and very valuable area of study. Well, let's pause for a moment and ponder the religious background of the United States to give us some perspective for the remainder of our deliberations. So let's talk about America's religious background. It is a rich and vital heritage, which really probably best dates from the 1600s and the colonialization of the United States, although there were previous Native American religious traditions that are important. But as the country begins to evolve, or at least the colonies begin to evolve, it is a experience of great religious diversity. Probably one of the most important points that can be made is that there was very early on an established church in the United States, the Anglican Church, where there were English colonies. Now, there were other religious colonies as well, Pennsylvania being a Quaker colony, Maryland being largely a Catholic colony, but the other colonies, at least many of the other colonies, were Anglican in nature as well as Congregationalist as well. There were at least 5 state churches before the Constitutional Convention and after independence. One of the earliest and most important manifestations of American religious ideas and this interaction between religion and politics was in Rhode Island. And a prominent example of Roger Williams, who was one of America's most vibrant early religious leaders. He is also the seminal figure in the development of Baptist ideas, and really largely Protestant ideas, of the interaction between church and state. Now, Roger Williams was an Englishman. He was trained at Cambridge. He studied under the great English legal theorist, Sir Edmund Coke, and he came to the United States. And in the United States, he helped form the colony of Rhode Island in the 1600s. And he came to the view that government should not and could not enforce the decisions and the ideas of the church, especially when it came to enforcing laws, church laws like the Ten Commandments. And so that was really his contribution, is that the state should not enforce the church's laws. Each had their own area, and they should stay in their own area. And so he becomes a great prophet of what we would call in the 21st century religious toleration. But again, he is one of various voices. In the 18th century, 1700 to 1760, we have increased religious diversity. More religious, what we would call in the 21st century, again, denominations began to appear in the United States. People of different religious orientations. And so this natural movement towards toleration gains ground, and it gets more substantial. And then we turn really to the next period, 1760 to 1820. You have the establishment of the Anglican Church, which becomes a predominant church in most of the country, in the majority of states. You also have going on in the larger world of religious activity and thought, the Enlightenment, which has taken place and has brought increased scrutiny on the role of religion. One might say even increased secularization, questioning of religious precepts and religious ideas. We also have in America that nice little event that becomes in earnest the center of religious and all other activities in 1776, the American Revolution. And this will affect American religion because, after all, we're not just moving away from the mother country, Great Britain, we're also moving away from most of the colonies from the mother church, the Anglican Church, the official state church in Great Britain. And so we will rebel. Of course, we will separate ourselves from the Anglican Church and form the Episcopal Church that still is alive and well and in the United States. But it will nevertheless continue a relationship with the Anglican Church in England. Also, more fundamental, more to the heart of the matter, will be the development of the American Constitution. In 1787 at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, which we'll be talking more about in this course, and those first 10 amendments, what we call the Bill of Rights, that really should be considered part of the original Constitution. Most importantly, for the purposes of this lecture, is the First Amendment and the dual pursuits of not having A, a state church, but B, allowing for people to worship freely as they would like. And those are two very important issues that we're going to talk about at greater length. Now, also you have the first presidency, Washington, who is a person who will evoke religious language, although himself an Anglican, as we know now, after 1776, an Episcopalian, but somebody who is not overtly religious, as some other presidents would be, followed by John Adams, and then Thomas Jefferson. And continuing this background, in our next lecture, we're going to talk about Thomas Jefferson and the notion of a wall of separation.